Sekhar, welcome to the Yellow Couch. So happy I finally got you on this. I had to chase you a bit. I'm excited for this episode because this is the first time I'm going to hear the behind the scenes story of how one of the most used and most, prolific platforms on the world is run from a behind the scenes perspective. And I'm talking about YouTube. For the benefit of the people watching this, what do you do at YouTube? What's your role?
No, firstly, thank you, Saurabh, for having me here. We've been trying to figure this out, so super excited. The Yellow Couch looks amazing. The office space looks amazing.
Thank you.
And really look forward to this podcast. My role at YouTube is actually I lead the media company partnerships at YouTube.
Okay.
So work with a lot of our largest content partners on the platform. And our goal is to, of course, get content on the platform and work with these partners to actually help them grow on the platform.
So when you say media partners, like individuals or like are these
are media companies. So for example, the large broadcasters, film production houses, some of the large OTTs, for example.
So they just put up their stuff on YouTube?
They put up their stuff on YouTube for various reasons. I mean, naturally they have a corpus of content that they're sitting on, which they use for their TV networks, which they use for their OTTs. But a lot of that content, we will sort of chat through this today, after a certain point loses its value. They are not able to derive value out of that. Because, movie releases, everybody watches for the 60 days, 90 days. If it's a good movie, lasts for a year, but what after that? How do you continue to derive value of the content? And there is a lot of value. There are users who have not seen the content, and that's where we come in. So a big part of why these companies sort of work with us is really distribution. Not just in India, but globally. We're present in every country, right? There's diaspora everywhere, and we're surprised it's not just the Indian diaspora. Sometimes it's some of, a Turkish guy probably watching a Hindi soap, for example, which otherwise that person would have never had access. So distribution is a big part of what we do. And the other piece is, of course, promotion. So, couple came on Netflix, and there's a whole bunch of content that's now come on YouTube. Just on the clips, couple has his own channel. He's putting up stuff on YouTube. That's all largely from a promotion standpoint.
Wow.
And that's where a lot of the media companies naturally come.
So when you talk about value, organic lifespan of a movie that gets released, what is the definition of value post that?
When these guys talk about value, right, naturally they are thinking about the platforms that they go to. So for example, if you release a movie, you're doing a theatrical launch. You will see how long does it run in the theaters, and there is a certain life there.
That's typical, 2 months, 3 months?
Sometimes it's probably a few weeks. If it's a big Shah Rukh movie, then probably for 6 months or for a year. But it's nothing more than 3 to 4 months, because after that there is an OTT play, right? So they'll put it on the Amazon Primes and the Netflix and so on and so forth, and that'll run for a few more weeks or months at best.
Okay.
Because if you look at all these apps, whenever a movie releases, it'll be top up on the shelf, and that's when you get the most impressions and viewership. But slowly it'll start receding, and sometimes it's just so hard. You must have seen to just find that content. It just gets buried in that volumes of content, and each of them know when that viewership starts dipping, and it just really goes down to a value where it's not generating enough. And each content owner has a pulse on that number, because they'll talk to the platform, from the theatrical they'll realize. And the shorter that window is, the sooner you will see them doing stuff with platforms like us. If it's a longer window, naturally it's in their best interest.
But then once they do go on YouTube, they're still monetizable, right?
They are monetizable. It's a different kind of monetization. Once it goes on YouTube, YouTube is sort of present everywhere, right? So then your ability to sort of take it to the other places goes down. You could do a deal with a platform in, say, US, and then do a different deal, say, in Australia.
But once it's on YouTube, it's everywhere.
It's everywhere. So people think about that. Naturally, you'll see a lot of the tier 2 movies sort of coming up sooner. The larger movies, they tend to do a paywall kind of a play. Because of the boom in this whole OTT space, there is a lot of annuity payouts that happen.
Okay.
So for example, people still have value to a movie like Bazigar, for example. The value may not be as high, but there is still some value. And the producer would not want to release that because they want to retain that value. So there is that play.
You're saying that as soon as a content gets made, the clock is ticking. As the content ages,
correct,
there are these various channels that come into play. right? Or platforms, distribution
channels,
channels that come into play.
Correct.
Based on how old that content is.
Absolutely.
Right? So if you are a few months old, a certain distribution platform works for you. If you are older,
correct.
That's so fascinating. I never thought about content aging. Are there pieces of content that just immediately go on YouTube first and not on anything else? I mean, I'm assuming like content created by just individuals and not organizations.
No, 100%. There are made for YouTube stuff, whether it is individual creators or even media companies. Some of the smaller media companies who don't have a strong OTT presence, they want to test it out on YouTube. Or on some of the other similar platforms, because so YouTube becomes sort of the testing ground. Does it make sense? Does it not make sense? There are a lot of web series whose first seasons are on YouTube, or the first couple of seasons are on YouTube, and then somebody else picked it up and did fascinatingly well. It becomes a testing ground for sure. What also happens is, typically a movie isn't just one single asset. There is just so much surround content. While you're shooting the movie, the BTS, there are a lot of things which didn't make it through for various reasons. You're sitting on such a big corpus, and just like this podcast, right? You shoot for X, you put out some X by whatever that number is, right? On the movie, that the corpus that is created is 10X, 20X. And that's where I think platforms like us do a great job making sure that every piece of that onion is as valuable as anything else. And I think it's an interesting one to sort of think about. We naturally also have not just free but also pay. You can also put stuff behind a paywall and things like that. So kind of a business model to sort of think about.
When you first joined YouTube 5 years back, what is the one thing or a few things that surprised you that you probably on the outside as a YouTube user didn't know?
How complex it is.
It is.
It is just.
It almost feels like to the layman that it's something that probably runs itself.
It's just an app. I mean, as a layman, I just think it's an app. And the days it doesn't work, I'm frustrated. That's how I used to be.
Yeah.
But when I look at the back end, it's not just the technology, the infra. There are servers all over the world. How do you, whichever place you're in India, you'll still get that video streaming so quickly. There are so many formats, and we'll talk about that, live, shorts, long form, and all those kinds of things. The different kinds of partners who are able to come and do and put content. There are hundreds of hours of content that are coming in every minute on the platform.
Really?
So how do you take all of that, send it to the user who's sort of scattered everywhere, put an ad layer on top of that, still ensure that we are safe as a platform, abiding by all the government, and different countries have their own set of guidelines and rules. There are different content that are getting flagged all the time, and then users flag. So if you put all of this together and the speed that you need to act on, you can't have a piece of content which is, it's falling outside the guidelines.
Complex machine.
It's a really complex machine. I still amazed at how it all comes together and works and stuff like that. But even a single minute of outage, and you can see, people sort of commenting and things like that. But I think it's
too big to fail.
It's just supremely complicated also because the platform has been in existence for over 15 plus years. So every year we have been adding, products.
What are some of the changes you've seen happen in the 5 years you've been there?
Oof. This is going to be a long one. I think when we started out, right, when I joined, we were well into the creator economy. So if I jog back 5 years before that, it was almost, people like the media companies who had content corpus who didn't know what to do with it. They were the first set of people who came. Then suddenly,
so it was not individuals who were the first set of people?
In India, these were the first set of people to come. It's a slightly different story in the US where the individuals came on board. And then there were folks like, TVF. There was a South
or
channel,
AIB,
AIBs and all of those. They were the first set of people who actually came and said there is value here. I can build popularity. And they did build popularity, right? And that sort of led to
they became the first kind of YouTube celebs.
Explosion of the creator economy of sorts, right? So I think when I sort of started out, we had a good mix of sort of both. But in terms of formats, we were still pretty singular, I would say. The single biggest format was long form, right? There was nothing else.
What's the technical definition of long form?
I mean, there wasn't a definition till short form actually happened.
So now in contrast.
As you were asking this, I think it struck to me, did we even think about whether this content is a long form content or not? The way we sort of think about right now is Shorts is a vertical and on us it's 60 seconds, on other platforms it's 90 seconds, and that window is sort of growing.
Sure.
But it's more the vertical and the horizontal sort of a difference, right? But till Shorts actually happened, we had long form, people are going live and stuff like that, so that was happening. But there weren't any other formats per se to think about, right? And then we have podcasts, we have Shorts, and it's just exploded.
So how do you define genre from a YouTube perspective?
It's the most complex piece ever. Because
imagine.
the moment you pin a name, it completely changes, right? For example, just if you take entertainment, entertainment itself has so many layers to it, right? You have sports, you have TV soaps, you have movie. You can extend that now to say there is news, right? You can extend that into gaming. You can extend that into learning. You can suddenly talk about food videos. I want to cook a recipe. You can talk about somebody like an Unacademy, for example, starting on YouTube. You can talk about shopping. Like there are people now creating. You remember the old on TV we used to have these.
Teleshopping?
You switch it on and they'll say, this pressure cooker available at 50%. Call now. So there are those formats also coming up.
Coming on YouTube now.
It's very successful in Southeast Asia. It's very successful in China. But we're starting to see a lot of that come up. So it's called Shopee content now. This is the whole spectrum, right?
And what is the one genre that has really surprised you that has come up recently?
I think when I started out, I think gaming itself was a big surprise because
people just watching other gamers.
People are just watching other gamers. Like somebody is streaming. There is a need base, right? Which says, I need a beauty regimen. So let me go find it from my creators, or I need to cook something, or I need to fix my refrigerator, right? So there is a very clear need there. But people are also looking for a whole bunch of connections, social connections. So when COVID happened, for example, you want to see like-minded people. So when you're watching a gamer sort of play, it is not just the gameplay. The fascinating thing about it is the commentary. And that's what people connect to. And that's the community that every 9 p.m. I go there with my favorite creator. I'm listening to my creator's commentary along with 1,000 other people who think very similar to me. Recently, there was one of our trends that sort of came up was there are people watching other people going up and down in a lift.
What?
They're just watching people going up and down in a lift.
That's it.
It's just that. This is more an outside example. In India, there's something called a barber ASMR.
Okay.
The classic barber videos, but they are more in the ASMR kind of genre, which helps you soothe, relax, and stuff like that. And there's a whole community around those. You'll be fascinated. There's nothing happening on that video.
That's crazy.
It's the classic, back in the day, how you sat in a barber shop. It's exactly that, but people are watching that stuff. And we realize it's about people want connection. They want to soothe themselves. That's why I said the genre sometimes surprise you. I don't know where do I categorize this genre. I don't know. I have absolutely no idea. That's why the moment we try to pin it down, it's just...
genre of people watching bakers cut cake into pieces.
Absolutely.
Like there's this Korean jiggly cake that people just watch. And it has like millions and millions of views.
No, but there was one during COVID, talking about chopping and cutting. I think there was one video, I forget the name of the channel, and it had some 5-10 million views.
Okay.
It just showed how do you cut onion in 5 different ways.
I would love to watch that.
It was the most in-demand video ever. So it's a little, some of it is entertainment, some of it is very functional.
It's like infotainment almost.
It's infotainment, shoppertainment now, as people are calling it. It's just branching out in so many other directions.
I know that YouTube has a centralized design team.
Correct.
Sitting out of the US. And so if there was an Indian kind of design team sitting in India, what do you think they would do for the Indian YouTube version that would be different? Like, would there be different features? Would it look different, work differently?
Yeah, no, it's an interesting one to sort of think about, because I think to the point that we just made about, the sophistication, the user sophistication is so different. So to give you a simple example, right? When you go into a country like US, people set their device language. English, Spanish, whatever that is, right? In India, nobody sets that.
Why
it's
not?
all English. The sophistication is...
So they don't even know they can do that?
They don't even know they don't do it. They just go.
Wow.
So you might be a Bengali user who's going there, whose language is set as English. Now, you have to figure out that this is a Bengali user who needs Bengali content, who's probably a male, female, could be a woman in the household using a man's phone. Or it could be a kid, for example, using the parents' phone.
Yeah.
You have to figure out as an app who's watching, and it's not easy. You also have logged in, logged out.
Yeah.
People starting it on the living room. We spoke about the connected TVs.
So a completely non-logged out user is like
these are the behaviors which are so unique to India. You see, and there are maybe other countries.
Shared devices is one example.
Yeah, there is exactly shared devices. The language itself not being very clearly detected. You're the expert here as far as UX is concerned. Like if you have to design, you might say, well, we can't infer it, let me ask it explicitly. Yeah. Of course, there's a cost to asking.
Yeah, of course.
And some apps do that, by the way. You know, they say, what do you want to watch? Give me your interest areas. Give me your language. Of course, that has its own challenges. People may game it.
100%.
People may just put random entries and stuff like. But again,
do people really know what they want to watch?
Do people have the sophistication to sort of put the right choices and things like that? So India is very unique in that.
That's an interesting design.
It's it's a very interesting design challenge, and the kind of explosion we are seeing. We spoke about shorts, for example. Yeah. I mean, it's happening in India before any other market. It's not happening elsewhere.
Wow.
So we are truly, I would say, truly secular in every kind of trend. Whether it's users, whether it's advertisers, we have the most testing and the most challenging problems that you could probably land at.
Last question, Sekhar. Next 5 years. What's your prediction for where user-generated video content is going, and what's the one thing that you are really excited about?
I think the few things that at least I am seeing is there is a lot of so-called virtualization of stuff.
Okay.
A good example is esports.
Like people playing Counter-Strike, for example.
Exactly, right? You know, fantasy sports, for example. Yeah. It's all virtual. It doesn't exist. You're creating your teams and you're doing stuff like that, right? You extend that trend, you're talking about virtual creators, right? You're talking about creating the scene that we are in right now virtually.
Yeah. No real people.
No real people. We can just create this, right? So I think virtualization as a theme, I think will take it up. And I think a lot of it will be aided by technology.
Yeah.
And the other related theme to that is a little more of immersive. I don't know if you watch the 3-body problem in Netflix, right? And there is a game that they play. It's immersion. It's virtualization plus immersion. Like you can put yourself in a particular landscape and you can immerse yourself in it, right? All of the Apples and Metas and all of that, they're trying to create these VR.
Yeah, with Vision Pro and all
absolutely, that's where they're trying to go, right? Super exciting on where that is going to go. We are seeing some instances of that play out. But you know what is going to happen is, there's of course a debate between what is real, what is virtual. So it is going to be an interesting conversation on how do we sort of deal with that. But we'll get there. But I think what we'll also see, I think just before leading up to that, is just an explosion of I think the content explosion is just going to continue. There is no stopping that. So today, for example, you can go to AI even on YouTube and get AI based insights. They will give an insight on what video to create on the back end.
I didn't know that.
On the back end.
I can do that today?
You can do that on the back end. You will get, there are recommendations that come out. It is getting better and better every single day. You can create a scene now, and this is not fully there, but Dream Screen is a product that we've launched where you can create a virtual background. You can create a video while you're
you're really bringing out tools to help the creator.
Exactly. And then there is the editing, which is also can be a very AI based sort of an editing.
So they don't need to go anywhere else.
They don't need to go anywhere. So you can see what's going to happen. You're gonna have virtual sort of creators. We see VTubers in Japan, for example, doing exceedingly well. Genuinely see today, for example, a lot of people come onto platforms like YouTube and they're passive viewers. You just see what's happening on the screen. But I think what we are seeing is people want to participate. They want to do stuff. They want to comment. They want to go they want to go have a debate. And I think that is...
So what are the new kinds of participation that can happen, right? That could be an interesting...
That'd be super interesting.
Area to explore.
There are creators who ask their viewers saying, tell me what video to make. There are people who do live debates, for example. But all of that is just going to participation. And we're seeing a lot of the Gen Z, for example, they want to participate. They just don't want to sit. They just don't want to
be passive.
They just don't want to sit and watch what is going on in this world. They want to have a view, and they want their view to be put out there, right? So it's virtualization, immersion, and participation. We'll see how all of this plays out. I think, I don't want to be naysayer, but I think it's always hard to predict where we will go. I think nobody knew where we are today, 10 years back. And I think that's the beauty of this space.
That's the beauty. Hearing you talk about this, Sekhar, is obviously, I'm 50% excited and 50% scared also, because...
What scares you?
I mean, YouTube has been such a high impact platform, like how much it has changed us. People don't even realize, right? How it has changed us fundamentally at the psychological landscape, right? I can see, when I get on YouTube and I'm get into the dopamine rush of just going through shorts, like I have to literally stop myself from being sucked into that. There's this power that scares me, but I think that's the nature of, having some fundamentally world-changing platform. I think obviously from my perspective, every technology is largely good, and there's always this flip side, and but that's true for anything.
No, I think as long as we act within the boundaries, as long as we respect, so like our sort of core values of sort of respecting the user, for example, as long as that stays true, I think we will continue to focus on the broader problem of whether people are spending too much time.
How do you maybe then give back control to them?
Correct. By the way, even today, right, you can go on the platform and actually look for the content that you need. It's just that, going back to what I said earlier, a lot of people just want lean back experience. They don't want to put the time and effort to
actually
go
pick
search
and choose stuff
for the video. So they are saying, tell me what you're feeding me, I want to watch it, and that sort of fuels it. But there is a tab now which says new to you, like you can go and you'll get a whole bunch of new recommendations. You can clean up all of your history, restart everything again. You can do all of that stuff again. But a lot of people choose not to do it, because I think there is also goodness in that, right? Like think about the number of accounts you have today. What, 10, 20, 30 accounts? And remember, every single time, like your password won't be remembered. Good luck to you if you have 30 different passwords. You can't ever remember. When you have an auto sort of password fill, it does save a lot of, so there is efficiency there. But of course, what if there's a breach of some sort? Then your account is at threat, right? So that is that flip and that risk. So there is goodness here, but how do we sort of do it in a very controlled way?
I feel, Sekhar, YouTube is a mirror reflection of humanity, right? It evolves the way humanity evolves. It shapes itself into what we are as a society. Who's changing who is I think, a debatable question, right? Does society shape YouTube, or YouTube shapes society?
I think it's a classic debate when you even look at movies, for example, right?
Exactly.
Like
who's shaping who?
Yeah, when you show a crime thriller, are you telling folks who are watching, saying, this is cool and this is, or is it a reflection of what is actually happening? It's the user's choice and freedom, whether they want to watch it or they don't want to watch it, and what do they want to take out of it. I think when it comes on digital, I think everything is right in front of you, so I think the conversation becomes a little sharper. But I think it's the same conversation whether you're opening a magazine and the kind of articles that come into the magazine, right?
Well, that's an interesting metaphor.
What is happening there? Does anybody talk about why this article is right at the top and why this article is right at the bottom, or why this article is on so-called page 3? How did all of this happen, right? So I think that's the interesting one. Like, why are there 3 ad jackets in front of a Times of India or whatever publication, right? So I think the same thing when it happens on the digital. Like if you think about the corollary, right? It's just putting sort of pre-roll ads, same thing. It's the same thing. You can of course choose to go from page 1 to page 4. You can stop reading the page 3 if you wanted. Literally, metaphorically, like you can do that.
Or you can keep flipping.
It's up to you. But the power is there in your hands. I mean, you see what good you can do.
So Sekhar, I want to thank you for giving us this fascinating behind the scenes look into the amazingly complex world of YouTube, and how much complexity is hidden behind the simplicity of going onto that and just picking a video to watch is just mind-boggling for me. I have a whole new level of respect for what it takes to dish that out to people like us every day. And I'm going to continue to bug you about this on our...
And hopefully continue to watch YouTube. I thought you were going to end on that note, but...
Continue to watch YouTube and continue to ask you to share with us all of these fascinating behind-the-scenes stories, man. So thank you so much for coming.
No, thank you, Saurabh, for having me. I know this was long overdue. No, thank you for having me over, and hopefully give you a good perspective on on how much thinking goes, behind these video platforms. And there's of course a lot more to come. And I think we should continue this conversation. We haven't spoken about UX as much, but that's
going to be part 2.
That should be an interesting conversation.
I think we need a part 2 to this conversation because I had no idea there is so much that goes on.
Correct.
So thank you.
Thank you, Saurabh.
My pleasure.